Hello, my name is Sophie and welcome back to my channel. It has been like 30 degrees in the UK today, so I'm filming this in the evening and I still feel like I am boiling from the inside out. So if I seem a bit exasperated, that is probably why. Today, I thought we could talk about the books I have on my leftover TBR. Leftover TBR? What is that? I don't hear anyone shout because that's the corniest thing I've ever said. I have multiple TBR lists. Of course we have the massive unread physical TBR, but then we have the monthly TBRs and the priority TBRs, which are not being prioritised in any way, shape or form. But then I have my leftover TBR, which is any book that was on my monthly TBR but didn't get read. And not every single book that doesn't get read goes on this list, because for example, if I don't read one of my famous 5 books for the month, I roll that onto the next month's TBR because I need to get those read. Can't really leave them behind. But there are some books that can be left behind. So, do I have them all to hand? I should get them. That would probably be a good place to start. I don't know if I can actually lift this. Oh my god. This is my leftover TBR. And here is a shout out for the sprayed edges. Can you tell that they're mostly Illumicrate and special edition pre-orders? The other category of books that I don't put on my leftover TBR from my monthly TBR are the ones on my 24 in 2024 list, because the hope is that I will read all 24 of those books by the end of the year. So I kind of have them as like it's another TBR list, but it doesn't have TBR in the title. So these are all the books, predominantly new releases, Illumicrate and Afterlight books, that I haven't got around to reading this year. So I'm gonna take you through them all. Optimistically, I'm gonna hopefully get back to and read them all by the end of the year. But considering I've not finished a single monthly TBR this year so far, the realistic chances of that happening are slim to none. But that's fine. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. In January, we had 2 books that got added to my leftover TBR in January. The first of which was when I still had Kindle Unlimited and I was trying to make an effort to use Kindle Unlimited every month. I found a whole list of books that were on my physical TBR that were also on Kindle Unlimited, because that felt like a nice way to be able to still read from my TBR but also make the most of the subscription I was paying for. So the book that I didn't get around to reading in January was Beastly by Alex Flynn. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling that got a film made in like 2010 or whatever, and I remember reading this at the time and loving it, but I feel like it was so long ago that I don't remember it well enough to know whether I still want it in my collection, hence why I'm considering it unread even though I have read it. I would still love to reread this at some point, and it's also super floppy, which is always really satisfying to read, but I did not get around to reading it. Then we have my first pre-order that I didn't get around to reading, and that is Feybound by Sarah El-Arifi. I've also not heard incredible things since this book came out, but I pre-ordered it because of these sprayed edges. It's just a stunning special edition. The front cover is red, there's a beautiful map on the inside cover, and I think the wonderful thing about reading is that even though I've seen predominantly negative reviews, that doesn't mean I won't like it. So I still like to go into these kinds of things open-minded. I will read it at some point, and this cover is just stunning. I think those colours are so striking. Then in February there were 3 books that I didn't get round to that added to the leftover TBR. This is another one that was on the Kindle Unlimited physical TBR crossover list. I very shortly after this cancelled my Kindle Unlimited because it was just putting more pressure on me to read even more books than I was capable of reading in a month, and that book is The Library by Bella Osborne. I picked this one up on a whim from a garden centre because they were 2 for £5, and I always find that when books are super cheap like that, I can take a bit more of a risk on books that I don't necessarily love the sound of, and often it's those books that I've taken risks on, particularly from places like The Works, that I've ended up really enjoying. And obviously this one's called The Library, so it's got a bookish theme about it, and I do tend to love books about books, so I will hopefully get round to this at some point, but did not get round to it in February. And then the other two books I didn't get around to in February were my Illumicrate and my Afterlight subscription books. So the January Illumicrate book was Voyage of the Damned by Frances White, which I believe has like a pirate theme, or is set on a boat. Maybe it was set on a boat but it didn't have pirates, and that's why I wasn't too fussed about reading it. This is one of the books that made me consider cancelling my Illumicrate subscription, because I just wasn't really taken by the premise. I have now cancelled my Illumicrate subscription, but that's okay because I still have enough Illumicrate backlog books to read that it will feel like I haven't. And then the Afterlight January book that went on my February TBR was At First Spite by Olivia Dade. I was so excited about this, and I am still so excited about this. I think this sounds like so much fun. I think these sprayed edges are just so cute. I think they're adorable, and I think this story will be so much fun. So I really do hope that this is one that I would really, really like to get to before the end of the year. But I say that about so many books that it starts to become meaningless. Then we move on to March, where the only books that added to my leftover TBR were my Illumicrate and Afterlight subscriptions, because I really haven't been prioritising, which again further added fuel to the I should cancel these subscriptions fire. Anyway, the books were To Cage a God by Elizabeth May. I've heard really mixed things about this, and again, it's one that I just wasn't really particularly taken by. This was a box that I actually meant to skip, but I got the dates confused because they take the money for Illumicrate so early in the month and then they send it so late, and it was just confusing. But because I own this, I will read it, and the edges are really, really pretty. If I don't like it, I will probably sell it at some point. We don't have Pango books in the UK. Pango sounds like a fantastic app for book selling in the US, but where's the best place to sell books in the UK? Is Vinted where I need to be? Do I need to be on Vinted? Please let me know if you're someone who sells your books, because otherwise I'm going to donate all these to a charity shop, and with the quality of these books and the specialness of these special editions, it feels like a waste. The Afterlight book that was on my March TBR was Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. Again, this one got super mixed reviews, but I feel like the people that were criticising this book are maybe perhaps missing the point that Tessa Bailey is somewhat taking the piss. She writes ridiculous things because they are ridiculous. It's the same way that people love soap operas and reality TV, because it's not real and it's silly and we can laugh at it. I think that's what this is meant to be, and the only other Tessa Bailey book I have read gave me those vibes, so I'm looking forward to the fun, silly romance vibes. I think this will be fun. In April, there were two books that I didn't get around to reading. I think I skipped my Illumicrate book for this month, hence why there isn't one on the list, but I didn't get around to reading my Afterlight book or a new release that I pre-ordered. So those two books were The Kiss Countdown by Etta Easton was my Afterlight book. I really, really wanted to read this because I am a space aesthetic girly, so the fact that this has space all over it and it's about fake dating with an astronaut, I so wanted to read this. I actually added this to my Summerween TBR in July, and I didn't get around to reading it then either, but I really, really want to read this. I just need to make more time for reading in my life, but how does one do that? It's not that simple. So I didn't get around to reading The Kiss Countdown by Etta Easton, but I'm so excited to read it in the future. And also I think this cover, I don't think it shows up okay. It doesn't show up particularly well because it's silver and white, but I think this cover is just the cutest. I want to get this tattooed on me. I think it's so cute. And then the book I pre-ordered that I didn't get around to reading in, are we in May? No, this is April, was But Everyone Feels This Way by Paige Leal, which is a non-fiction book about the autistic experience from an actually autistic person. The byline is How an Autism Diagnosis Saved My Life, and I've been following Paige on her social platforms for a little while now, probably over a year, if not 2 years. I'm really intrigued as to how her verbal communication translates to written communication, and I'm just intrigued as to what she has to say as a waiting to be diagnosed autistic person. So hopefully I will get around to reading some more non-fiction this year, because I really should do that. Then for the last 3 months that are on my list, I only added one book to my leftover TBR in each month. So in May, it was one of the new releases I pre-ordered. I had pre-ordered Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne because of these sprayed edges. I mean, just look at them. This special edition is stunning, and I have also pre-ordered the special edition of A Pirate's Life at Tea, which is the sequel to this book, and I haven't read it, so I really should read it, especially with the sequel coming out. But this is another one that I pre-ordered and did not get around to reading. I really do try my best. It doesn't always go very well. Then we've got a couple more Afterlight and Illumicrate books, because in June the one book I didn't get around to reading that actually went on my leftover TBR was One Last Shot by Betty Kayowet, which is my Afterlight pick for the month. This is a second chance childhood friends. He's a photographer, she's a model, and it's set in Italy, I believe. This sounds like a super fun summer read, and again, I really wanted to read it. There's only so many hours in the day, and there's not a whole lot of brain cells up here. We tried our best. And then last but by no means least, the book that I didn't get round to reading on my July TBR that actually went on the leftover TBR was, this was an Illumicrate book that got delayed, so I believe it was the May Illumicrate book, but it went on my July TBR because it was super delayed in when it got sent out, and that is Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel. Yeah, this is another one that I wasn't particularly obsessed with the concept of, but it sounds fine, and I will read it because I have it. And again, the whole edition is very, very pretty. Compared to how excited I am for some of the romance books and some of the books that I pre-ordered, these Illumicrate books definitely fall to the wayside in terms of how excited I am about reading them. And that is everything on my leftover TBR. That's not to say that in the last 3 months I've read all but one book on my TBR, but it's just the way it is. Sometimes, like I say, Famous 5 books, the 24 and 2024 books often don't get prioritized. I think because I make my TBR based on categories such as my book club, these Famous 5 books, my subscription books, my 24 and 2024, I do kind of have a priority order of what I want to read. So up there I have my August TBR, and the order I currently have them in is my catch-up Famous 5 book because I just want to get it out the way, my book club book because I really don't want to fall behind on that. Then I've got my Afterlight book, the other Famous 5, my 2 pre-orders, and then one of my 24 and 2024, and then my Illumicrate book because that only arrived yesterday. This month, yeah, this month's TBR is too long. But like I've been saying for ages, I am trying to cut down my TBRs. Like I mentioned, I had Kindle Unlimited at the beginning of the year. I've since cancelled that. But now that I've cancelled Illumicrate and Afterlight, starting in October my TBRs will get shorter again because I cancelled my subscription now. I'm waiting on one more box from each company and they will go on my September TBR, but after that maybe my TBRs will actually start getting slightly more achievable. But the important thing to remember is that all of this is because I love reading and I love books and love storytelling. It's not about numbers, it's not about finishing lists or finishing TBRs. I just like organising things, so having things in lists and TBRs is making my brain happy, and that's why I have all of these lists of books. So I hope that's been insightful in some way, shape or form. If you've not heard of any of these books, or if you have actually, no, if you've heard of some of these books, or even better, if you've read some of these books and you have thoughts, feelings and opinions on them, please do let me know, because that will help me decide whether to prioritise or deprioritise those books. I would love to hear your thoughts. But other than that, that's everything I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're having a great day and I hope you're reading a great book. And I'll see you next time for another bookish video. Bye!